Good morning, 8th graders. In this mini lesson, we're going to take a look at some more basics about the coordinate plane. Specifically, we'll talk about the 4 quadrants and how we number the coordinate plane with those quadrants. And then we're also going to show you a couple examples on the first IXL problems you're working on this week. So I'm going to put this into present mode. And what we have here is a visual that you'll also have access to in our slides today. As a reminder or a recap from yesterday, the coordinate plane, or a graph as some of us call it, is made by having a horizontal axis, or a left and right axis, which we call the x-axis, and it's joined by a vertical, or an up and down axis that's called the y-axis. And we use these coordinate planes to measure the relationship between two variables. X measures one of those variables, y measures the other variable, and any point on this graph, like this pink point that you see right here, can be identified by using this x, y coordinate system. So the way that works, first we need to know what the origin is. The origin in green here is the middle of our graph. It's where the x-axis meets with the y-axis, that very middle of the graph. The coordinates for that are 0 and 0. I'm not left or right at all on the x-axis, so I'm at 0 for x. And the same thing for the y-axis. I didn't move up or down at all, so 0 and 0 is your start point for the origin in the middle of the graph. And then we identify the location of a point, like this example here, the pink point. The x-axis, or the x value, always gets listed first. And so this pink point is 4 units left of the origin, or lines up with the -4 on the x-axis. So that's how we identify its x location, its left or right spot. And then second is always y. Y comes after x in the alphabet, and that will identify how far up or down we are on the graph. So we're going to use those notes, this basic idea of identifying coordinates, to see a few examples on IXL. And then we're also going to have problems that ask us which quadrant you're in. And quite simply, the quadrant system starts with quadrant 1 in the top right, where x is positive on the right side of the graph and where y is positive. And that's the part of the graph you use most because positive numbers are more common in the real world. And then they just go in a counterclockwise direction. If you go opposite the way that a clock travels, we go quadrant 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. And we'll talk more about those quadrants when we get to IXL. So the first thing we're going to look at for IXL, I don't think we need our notes for this. Let me zoom in a little bit. It's going to ask us what are the coordinates for point T. So if they're asking us what are the coordinates for point T, I'll put a green box around that question. We see point T is this green point over here. And if I take a look at point T, I see that its x-axis, or where it is left or right, it lines up with the 4. So I'm going to go ahead and put a 4 in for my x-axis value. For point T, it's 4 units to the right of the origin. And I also need to find its y value, so we'll go ahead and we'll point towards the y-axis where T is located. T is located 5 units up on this graph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see it lined right up with that 5 on the axis. So that tells me that I'm going to have a 5 for my value for T. We'll show one more example here. They ask us what are the coordinates for point W. So if they're asking us what are the coordinates for point W, I just find and locate that, and then I'm going to do its x value first. Again, it lines up with the -3 on the x-axis, and then it lines up with the +2 on the y-axis. So I'll use that information, -3 and 2, to identify the location of point W. So I think we're in good shape to be working on N1. Those are a couple examples from the first IXL assignment you'll see this week. I also want to take a moment to go show us N2, which is going to ask you about the different quadrants in which points are located. So let me clean up the screen quick. And now for N2, they're going to start asking you about quadrants. And so to remind us, I'm going to show us here quickly how to put myself into split screen. There are shortcuts to do this, but I could just make that smaller by dragging. And I'm going to pull these notes to the side to help me out a little bit. I think it's a good idea sometimes when I'm working to have notes on one side that can help remind me of what I'm working on my actual problem. Thanks for being patient while I set this screen up. There we go. Alright, so our next question is going to be asking us which quadrant is the point F in. So we'll put a box around that question and reread it. It says which quadrant is point F in? and I see point F is right here. We're going to put a nice little arrow. Put a nice little arrow pointing at point F there. And now, so they're asking us which quadrant is point F located in, and if I have my notes over here, all I need to do is look and see, oh, this is in the top left quadrant, where X is negative and Y is positive, and I know that's located in quadrant 2. So I could go ahead, click quadrant 2. This assignment definitely starts to get a little more difficult. We'll see if that's correct. We're happy to help you, but this video is going a bit too long, so we're going to cut it off right now, and hopefully this has been helpful. We're going to play a little Kahoot to practice this, and then you'll be in these IXL assignments just like us here.